Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koe te māngai o te whare, tēnā tātou katoa. E tautoko ana hau i ngā mihi kua tukuna ki te marea ka tau mai ki roto i te kaupapa o te pōnei. Ka tautoko anō hoki i ngā mihi ki o tātou tini aitua, ngā mate huhua o te wā, kua ngaro atu ki runga i ngā marae mahaputa noa i te motu whānui, kāti te wahanga ki te pō, haere mai haere, āwake ki a tātou e te hunga ora, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr. Speaker, thank you for allowing me this contribution on the Ture Whenua Māori Bill. I want to begin, Mr. Speaker, by addressing some of the claims made by Minister Finlayson towards me. And I want to start that by saying a classic ngāpuhi whakatauki, which goes like this. He karoro ka tau ki te toka, ka tiko ka rere. I'm sure as you grab your earpiece, it might be able to translate that for you. But that member said that he's done more than I have in the north. If I had the time, Mr. Speaker, I'd regale this House with 126 generations of my people, back to the beginning of time to myself, and the jobs we have done to protect our whenua, the job we have done to protect our culture, the job we have done to protect our taonga. And I stand here today as an embodiment of the 126 generations of my tupuna from Te Tai Tokerau, representing them here on this important take. I'm not one who gets too angry, Mr. Speaker, but I just want to address that fact. To the bill, Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House will not be supporting the bill. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues here on this side and want to, in my contribution, reiterate some of the points they've made, discuss some of the ideas and thoughts that I have on this particular bill, Mr. Speaker. And I want to start, Mr. Speaker, by talking about the treaty settlements. Just briefly, Mr. Speaker, this House is constantly told about the efforts of this government to settle treaty grievances. I want to quote, Mr. Speaker, Sir Tipene O'Regan, one of the grandfathers of the early treaty settlements processes, alongside the father of my esteemed colleague here, Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, who says, settlement on a basis of need rather than of right is almost certainly contrary to the treaty itself and is a concept that will eventually suffer review in the High Court. And Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid to say that this particular piece of legislation will suffer the same fate. It will see it being dragged through the High Court. And when we think of the judicial systems that will be there to adjudicate over such a piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge and address the words of tikanga that are found in this piece of legislation. Why should we leave the court to adjudicate our customs and our tikanga? You enter into a grey area when you start allowing a Pākehā construct to do that for us as Māori. No court will tell me on my marae what my tikanga is. No court will adjudicate over my ability to govern and to maintain my whenua. Mr. Speaker, I'm reminded of the efforts of my ancestor who, as a part of the 126 generations I've mentioned here, a man by the name of Te Kuhunga, who signed the Treaty of Waitangi. He later adopted the name Maihi Paraone Kawiti, the son of Kawiti. He was responsible within Ngāti Hine of establishing what is now known as Te Porouni, or the province of Ngāti Hine. What he did, sir, was over 2 years, from 1875 to 1877, consulted with the people through numerous hui in Waioomio, the mid-north. What he did, Mr. Speaker, was he gained the consensus of the people who lived on the land within the province of Ngāti Hine. He wrote a book which is known as Te Papa Tupu o Ngāti Hine, the lands of Ngāti Hine. The ancestral lands given to him to care for, the ancestral lands that are now given to myself and the members of Ngāti Hine to care for. I want to talk about, briefly, Mr. Speaker, the Papa Tupu. The Papa Tupu was put in place to protect the land. At the time, you'll appreciate, a lot of land was lost in part to the pieces of legislation mentioned by the Minister Finlayson. So I want to acknowledge his efforts, and I want to make a commitment to him that that will not happen under my watch, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as an administrator of land in Ngāti Hine this very day, myself with my tuakana, Member of Parliament Pita Paraone, are responsible for the administration of approximately 5,000 hectares of Māori land. We have dealt with the Māori Land Court. We have worked with them. We have argued with them and debated with them. And I've said in this House time and time again, we must ensure that they get the resources they need to fulfill their job. And I'm afraid this piece of legislation, and in particular the establishment of the MLS, will merely put the cart before the horse. Because what it'll do, Mr. Speaker, is it'll set up another process that'll look at issues such as succession. Succession of shares, succession of land. And Mr. Speaker, running a parallel course to the MLS is everything else that the Ture Whenua Māori that's being proposed today will bring. And I don't believe that that is a strong, robust process. I believe we must fix those injustices of the past. I believe we must review the Māori Land Court. I believe we must resource the Māori Land Court to do the functions that they already currently do and do well. Because the deficit thinking of this arrogant government is that there is far too much idle Māori land out there. Well, I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, as an administrator of Māori land, our land is hugely productive. And we've worked very hard over the past 40 years to make it that way. Is it perfect? No. Is it productive? Hell yes. So, Mr. Speaker, this particular kaupapa, this particular bill, Te Ture Whenua Māori, is something that gets us all passionate. We've heard the whakatauki, we've heard the expressions in this House about how important land is to us. Well, just as important is that we get it right. We must get it right. We hear the member now spouting that we must work together. My colleague here, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, has already stated that if this was done correctly at the beginning to gain full consensus of our people, we wouldn't be voting against this. But here we are. But here we are, Mr. Speaker. We are arguing over and debating over this particular bill. Mr. Speaker, we know that it will be going to the Māori Affairs Select Committee, and I say to that committee, of which I am a part-time member, depending on what food is being served at that meeting. Mr. Speaker, I want to say kia matara. Kia matara. Kia matara. Why? Because we on this side of the House will be challenging this bill. We will be picking it apart to make sure that the lines are drawn very clearly, that there is no grey area between tikanga, LAW and LORE. Because in those nuances, land has been lost and we will not see that happen again. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, and I want to endorse the words of my colleagues on this side of the House and implore the Minister to withdraw this bill, to allow our people to digest it properly, to allow them to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. If we can wait nearly 200 years for the Te Tiriti o Waitangi, I tell you what, my tamariki and my mokopuna will be ready to do the same with Te Ture Whenua Māori. And Mr. Speaker, I want him to acknowledge the over 5,500 people who signed the petition asking this minister to withdraw this bill, to allow our people time. And I can say to this minister that 5,500 signatures on this petition are more than those that showed up to the hui over the past 5 years. And we want their voices to be heard. We want their voices to be heard throughout this entire process. And you can bet your bottom dollar we on this side of the House will be challenging this process all the way through. Ka tiki a tātou, tēnā tātou.
I call Dr.